Well, to be very frank, you have made me a star. I don't really consider myself as a star. But my biggest achievement in life has truly been, apart from my professional career, my biggest achievement has been the wonderful family that I have got and who are with me. And that includes my wife, my two sons, and my mother, which makes me feel that life is all about keep myself ticking and you have to keep on moving. When it comes to the professional front, I think my biggest achievement has been when I come from a finance field completely, but 5 years back in my early organization, they saw something in me which I have never done, which is taking the role of admissions, and I was given the position of a director to overlook the admissions of the university, erstwhile university, and I was given the charge of recruiting students from all over the world. That included the CIS countries, that included Russia, that included entire Africa, that included the entire of Middle East. I have never done this before, and I took up this challenge. And within a couple of years, by the grace of God and my mother's blessings, we moved our bottom line by almost 400%. And that was something which was a big surprise to me, because it was with a lot of trepidations I have taken up that role. And I was a completely seasoned professor, never done this job before, but I was very successful. And it went on happening, and I kept on doing this, kept on increasing my stamps on my passport. So I think taking up a challenge which I've never done, doing something in a field which never belonged to me, to be very honest. I'm purely from a finance background. Doing marketing and admissions was something which I never did, and I did very successfully. And my honor came when my boss simply made a statement which I will never forget. He said, you are successful because you never say no to anything. You take up the challenge. You just give your best, and that is why people who are around you, they also feel that it is always possible to do. And truly, I managed a team of 11 people. They were extraordinary. So I think that's in professional field, that's the biggest achievement. Apart from that, I was the youngest professor in 2008 when I was awarded by Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, which is now Bangalore, as the youngest researcher of the year. I was at the age of 24, I became a professor in India, in a university. I was the youngest professor by then. So, I mean, it just keeps on going. I mean, whatever I do, I just live the moment, and that's how I think it makes me feel that I never get tired. I am not a guru, but I can tell you what I live. Live the moment. Live the moment. You never know what the next moment is going to be, and give your best. There are three things I will tell, which is very important, not from the books, but what my father has taught and which I sincerely believe. One, be honest. When you're honest, then you don't spend time thinking about how to manage yourself, because life gets managed when you're honest. You don't have to, all those worries, many of the worries are left behind you because you're honest. Second, give your best foot forward. Always put your best foot forward. In an organization, it's hard to come by a good pat, because bosses would never tell you really good. Because as they say, the moment they say good, they believe that you got to be promoted. So always put the best foot forward. That is number two. And number three, which I never used to believe but I've started believing, believe in luck. Believe in luck. That's very important. And keep on doing things. You never know when luck will strike you. It's like a clock, it keeps on moving. But when that hand of the clock points towards you, you do not know. But one day that will point towards you. You have to be prepared for that. So, whatever I did, I was prepared. I was prepared that this is coming. I think a good manager is one who can see what is coming. An average manager is one who cannot see the tsunami hitting him. So it's very important. Disaster will always be there, problem will always be there. But yesterday was a better day, than today, and tomorrow will be a worse day. Always. basically, I was a science graduate. I was a science graduate, and I scored pretty well in my high schools. My 11 and 12 was physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology, pure science. But I really could not do that well in order to get into some of the best universities to do science. And I think it was a good thing that I did not do well. I took commerce, I studied in some of the very good places, and my life changed when I got into the university. That is when I was doing my MBA. Of course, commerce helped me to build the basic knowledge. So finance was always something, accounting and finance was something which I started liking. I started liking numbers. I was always good in analytical skills. I was always good at mathematics. I was always good at that. So when I say good, I'm not saying that I was something which I was an inventor, but I loved the sight of numbers, which I still do. I could see numbers everywhere, and I never got bored of it. So when I did my masters, my life changed. I got some of the best professors to teach me finance, and that inclination and love that came at that age stayed with me. I did my professional programs after my masters. I kept on doing many professional programs. I took up the challenge of becoming a teaching assistant of professor. Professors were very good. After that, I got elevated to research associate. I was given the assignment to teach a distance learning student. I did very well. Then I started teaching evening working professional student. I did very well. I was given the chance to teach undergraduate student. I did very well. Then I moved on to teach management student. I did very well. And then it never stopped. So I felt that when things are in a pattern, it is destined for you. God has written something for you. And my love every day towards numbers kept on increasing. I never got tired. I never felt for a single day, even today, I never feel for a single day that I'm working, because I just simply enjoy doing it. And then I started writing. I started writing. I wrote around 8 books. I wrote innumerable papers. I wrote innumerable articles, which I keep on doing. And then when I moved to Gulf, I started writing for the newspapers like Gulf News, Khaleej Times, National, Oman Times, Bahrain Times, many magazines. It never stopped. It is basically, I love what I do. And therefore, I feel that the success mantra lies in enjoying what you're doing. The moment you get tired of your work, I think you need to change your job. So I'm in a profession which is typically a teaching profession. Unlike a high school where it is very programmed, in a university, of course it is programmed, but typically a professional day would start with teaching master students or undergraduate student, which goes throughout the day. There are few things which I mandatorily do in a day. For example, I spend at least an hour and a half in updating myself what's going around the world in the world of finance and politics, very, very strongly. So there would not be a single day where I would not know what's happening back in India, back in the neighboring countries, back in the US. In finance profession, it's very important that if you want to bring practicality in your program, in your subject, and if you want more than information, you want your students to be knowledgeable, you got to connect the dots. And we live in a society which is very strongly information oriented. So we need to ensure that the students are up to date with the information and how meaningful that information is to them. So I would spend at least an hour and a half. So my day would be around 6 to 6.5 hours of teaching, 1 hour of reading or writing. Then there would be an hour of socializing when I go back home. It would be with my mother, my wife. Then I take on my role as a father. I take it very seriously. My elder son, I sit with him on a regular basis, and I won't say I teach him, but I learn with him together. So between 7 to 8:30, 1.5 hour, we sit together, and both of us learn from each other, which in the traditional term you would say I'm teaching him, but we learn from each other. And then we go for a walk typically, and next day morning starts very early with a little bit of walk, which is around 15 to 20 minutes after dropping the kids to school. So that's how the typical weekdays go. There should not be any particular definition of an entrepreneur. I think to me, to me, an entrepreneur would be one who wants to see a different world tomorrow, a very different world tomorrow. And he wants to make a change in the life of many people. An entrepreneur is all about making changes in the life of many people. Unlike a businessman, unlike a salaried person who makes a change in himself, an entrepreneur brings a change in many people. And I think it's more than a definition, it's about what is the trait. So an entrepreneur is all about same change. It has remained the same and it will remain the same till the last day of my life. I have not taken up the profession of teaching just because it's an easy job, which many people say. I have taken up a job of teaching so that at least I can bring values to life of at least 10% of my students in life. I want to inculcate values. I want to live the value system. When I was a student, I figured out there are many loopholes, lacunae, many things which I should have received from my teachers and professors, which never happened. I want to bring those to my student, more values, and I want to bring those values in them, and that's why I have taken up this profession. When it comes to vision, I want to do one thing in my life for which I should be remembered. One thing, only one thing. I'm still searching what should be that one thing. I have not got an answer. So I don't intend to do many things. I want to do one thing which should be so powerful that people would remember me. I am sure I would find that elixir of life one day, that one thing. Personally, if you ask me, my biggest challenge is I'm very emotional. Personal life, I'm extremely emotional. Extremely emotional. I mean, I just get very scared when my near ones or dear ones face conditions of ill health. And professionally, if you ask me what's the biggest challenge, I don't know if it's a challenge or it's my quality. I'm not a showman. I don't want publicity. I want whatever wisdom, whatever knowledge I have, people should understand the core of it. Rather than getting it publicized, people should understand that there is a value system in every one of us. We are not living the value system. We got to live the value system. So when it comes to a challenge, I really don't face much of a challenge at my workplace because, as I say, I'm a person who can take up anything at any moment and with a smile. Anything at any moment with a smile. It is very difficult to bother me. Very difficult. You would get fed up. Very difficult because I'm ready for everything. My earlier dean used to tell me, he is from the UK, Arindam, my key to success was being prepared for the unprepared. So I'm always prepared for the unprepared. So I don't face any challenge, but yes, I am highly emotional when it comes to professional life. I think I need to overcome that. Different stages of life very differently. When in the first 5 to 6 years of my life, I remember my boss used to tell me, it is very important, professor, if you want to grow in your ladder, you have to manage yourself by blowing hot and blowing cold. You cannot be only hot or only cold, so you got to manage both. So I tried to improvise myself and tune according to the situation. So that's the best advice which I acted. So I always tried to be as per the situation. When I matured into my, nearing my 10 years of my service, one of the very, very important advice which my erstwhile boss gave me, who is one of the most renowned businessmen of India, he said, you got to keep your secrets. Emotional person finds it very difficult to keep secrets. You got to keep your secrets. You will feel sharing good news, but that has to come in small doses. Not everyone will perceive your happiness in the same manner. And now I have been working for now 15 years, if I consider my third phase of life between 10 and 15 years, where I think I have executed most of the advices which I have taken. So now is the time where people who are of my age or senior to me, they always keep on saying, always tell me that don't expect much. I think it's like Maslow's hierarchy. We are reaching a stage where our necessities, our basic amenities are all taken care of. We slowly will be moving in another 10 years' time to self-esteem. So I think it's all about not to expect much. Go with the flow. Go with the flow. My definition of work is very different. We are professors. We don't work typically 9 to 5. If you ask, typically our work comprises of three different elements: teaching, reading, writing, and mentoring. For teaching, you have to be physically present in the college. You cannot teach offline. For reading and writing, you don't need to be. You can be anywhere. You can be even in a cafeteria. You can be even traveling in a train. You can read. And mentoring, nowadays we do it through offline, the various kinds of offline medium. So when it comes to work, typically a working hour is as yours, 40 to 50 hours a week. But I think for me, non-working hours a day would be around 7 hours, which is my sleeping time. That's my non-working. The rest is all working. Even when I'm reading a newspaper, it's basically working because I'm going to take that information to the class. So for me, like now I'm working basically because I have a lot to learn from your questions, discovering myself. So for us as professors, it's not typically a mandate. Yes, we have to teach this number of hours, but beyond that, it's all working for us. I am a very unsocial person, not antisocial, but very unsocial person. Very unsocial person. I don't manage any of them. I only manage my LinkedIn profile. That's it, because I'm very strongly connected with my student. My biggest strength in my life, apart from my smile, which I always give, is my relationship. I have a very strong relationship with even the guy with whom I've studied 30 years back. I have a very strong connect. Very strong. I think that comes automatically. Relationship is very strong, very strong. So, email, if you ask me, I don't keep on looking at emails because that's very distracting to me. So I would look into emails maybe 3 times a day. And that's a distraction because even if you keep the email box open, the focus would go towards that. So I consider it's not there. And when it comes to phone calls, I have a typical habit. If you check my phone after the interview, there is not a single phone number without a name. So the moment a phone comes, I take the number. So I know next time if a bank is calling me or somebody else is calling me. So I know what to call, what to take and what not to take. And I believe in a very simple philosophy. If somebody is so keen to talk to you, he will find different means. If he doesn't get through one, he will try through another one, and I'll definitely respond. So for me, I'll tell you what I do, which I don't think so many people do. I don't send e-cards. I don't send WhatsApp message for happy birthday. I don't send social media messages. I always call up people. I listen to their voices and I do it. So wherever they are, so whether my friend is very far away in the US or anybody, my relative is in India, I make sure I call up my relatives at least once a week. I always do that. And I've taken a plan which helps me in doing that. I don't believe in those messages which has no life. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in having a million friends which are good for nothing when it comes to a requirement. I don't believe in that. I would rather make friends rather than add friends. So I don't have a Facebook. I don't have those Instagrams, Twitter. I don't have all those things. I have my LinkedIn primarily to connect to my student and my alma mater, and of course for my professional upliftment also. And I manage WhatsApp because as an organizational lead where I am, WhatsApp is a must. as an organization need. WhatsApp is a must, or else I wouldn't have also maintained the WhatsApp. So, which I started very late. So, I have a lot of time to do my things which I like. I just simply don't do which I don't like. Fantastic, I'll tell you, fantastic. Because to be very honest, as you can see, I don't feel I'm working. I don't. I don't. Like for example, we have certain KPIs as professors, and that is beyond the teaching. How much you can write, how much you can contribute, what is your research, how many people have you mentored. For me, like for example, I pick opportunity everywhere. I pick opportunity everywhere. For example, today I read in the first page of Gulf News that people who have taken loan in UAE and invested in dollar, their money has been wiped out. That becomes a great case study for my class. So I know half an hour is done. So my work-life balance is all about being focused. I spend so much of quality time with my family that they sometimes feel that do I work? And I believe very strongly in family life. Very strongly. And I live my family life. Example, for the last 1 month, my entire family has gone to India on vacation. In the month of July to August, mid, I stayed back with my elder son. I said, let us see whether we can manage. So we have decided we will do every year, we will do one thing which was never thought of. So this time we manage everything from cooking, cleaning utensils, washing clothes, drying clothes, everything we did because we are both, me and my son, 11-year-old. And in between, we went to another country for vacation on weekend. We went to Armenia and we just had a blast. So basically, work-life balance, I don't believe, I'll be very honest, you can cut that later on. I don't believe in working 15 hours strenuous and then going to a party at the weekend to a bar. I don't believe in that. I just believe that life comes in small doses. It doesn't come in a steroid. Okay, I'll do everything by today. No, a person who is talented, work will never end. If you think 5 o'clock your work ends, oh my God, then what you are doing tomorrow morning? Will the work come in midnight? There will always be work for a good worker, and there will be no work for an absolutely useless guy. But I have to draw the full stop. So I ensure that I draw my full stop. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I have a very good habit which I inculcated. I keep a tab on what is to be done. So for example, today I have around 15 work to be done. I know I can't do 15, but I will do 5 priority. The important things, it will be done. Not everything has to be done. I don't have to prove to the world anything. You don't, when you are in a cricket match, you don't have to bowl all the 6 balls where you can take a wicket. But one good ball is good enough. So I always try to do something which is, makes your day great. And the first few hours of the day is where my productivity is the highest. So I try to pick up the best thing, which is the first thing in the morning. So my work-life balance is pretty settled. I don't involve in anything. While I'm in work, I don't involve in anything. I don't gossip. I'm just very focused. So I get a lot of time for other things. If you ask me, my strength is I never give up. And there is nothing impossible. Nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. Everything is possible, to be very honest. Which can be logically explained. When people are going to Mars, everything is possible. My greatest strength is I take up challenges. And my experience tells me that I can succeed in most of them. My greatest weakness, I am not an ambitious person. I am not striving for, the awards and accolades. I don't want to mess up my mind with too much of clutter. I want to live my life. I want to live my life very happily, and I want the people around me to be very happy. So my weakness is I'm not trying to live life as if tomorrow is the last day of the life. I'm not. So life comes in small doses, and I want to live the moment. There can be many, but one thing I'll tell you, which has always kept my mind free from clutter. I'm a damn honest guy. I am no compromising guy. I'm an ultra strict guy. And I face problems also for that. Even here, I will not compromise for principles. So I am facing also right now so a lot of challenge, but I can confront. I can confront. I am a damn honest guy, extremely honest. I mean, sometimes it becomes principally not correct also. I don't put conditions. Relationship, whether it is professional or personal, should be heart to heart. Should be heart to heart, as it used to be in olden days. It cannot be artificial. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be cultivated. It cannot be, because one day it will show up in your face. So I think because I don't compromise, I am very honest. I don't have to bother at night while I'm sleeping. I don't have to bother what will be tomorrow morning, what mail will I get. I don't have to bother. I'm very clear. I'm absolutely clear. So that's one strength has been, and which is key to my success. And the second is, I don't know. I'm always happy. I don't know why, but I'm very happy always. I don't know why, but whether or not I get an elevation, whether or not the salary comes on time, I don't know how it happens, but I'm always happy. I'm extremely happy. So I really don't bother. I'm a very happy guy. It really doesn't matter anything, except when somebody is not keeping well. That makes me very sad. But other things, I'm always very happy. So I think a person who is happy, success comes. Always. My biggest failure was me not being able to make into the premier engineering institute in India. My house is comprised of very educated people. My father, my grandfather, all are extremely educated people, all are engineers from the premier institutes of India. So my father said, if you ever want to give me something in life, try to get into the IITs, which I couldn't. I tried, I really struggled, but I tried, but I could not. And I locked myself for 2 days in the room. I still remember I locked myself in the room. So it was a very, very pathetic phase of my life. I mean, as if life has come to an end. And then my uncle came and said, remember, life doesn't come to an end like that. There are many things you will learn. I was very young at that time, of course, just a high school graduate. I mean, going for a class, I just graduated from class 12, going for, I thought life is finished. So then what I learned from that is, yesterday, when we look at life, yesterday was always a better day, because tomorrow the challenge is bigger. I thought that was the worst day of my life. My goodness. Next day was even bad, even worse. So that's what I learned, that there is nothing as bad, because it keeps on. Because there is good, there would be bad. Because there is black, there is white. And professionally, if you ask me, one of my biggest challenges was not able to handle a serious crisis situation in professional life 4 years back. Not to get into the details, but in my professional life, there was a serious crisis that happened. And the crisis that happened, I was managing as a director of student recruitment, and certain issues that happened, I should have foreseen them. As I said before, a good manager should foresee a tsunami. I just couldn't foresee. I just couldn't foresee the magnitude of the problem, and the magnitude and the intensity and the way by which the outcome and the consequences would be amplified. I just couldn't. It was a big disaster. I couldn't just manage. But even after a huge financial loss of the organization, boss came and said, it could have happened with anyone. I just couldn't hold myself, actually. He said, it would have happened with anyone. Make sure that we recover as fast as possible and recoup our reputation. I think these are the two very notable things which would remain in my mind for a long time, very long time, because it took away my sleep. And I am a person who really doesn't let sleep slip away from me. So no matter what happens, so it took away my sleep. I had sleepless. Truly, I had sleepless nights, not metaphorically, but truly, I had sleepless nights, and I think it taught me a lot of lessons. The only thing which I have learned in my 15 years of my career is, after a certain point in time in professional life, your university degree, your bookish knowledge, your great, you know, readings of textbook doesn't matter. Success would come if you can understand the people around you better. I fail to identify people. I fail to identify what appears is not always true. I fail to understand that what appears in the mirror is not the true reflection of the self. That's what I think now, over the years, I have learned in a better way. Undoubtedly, without getting emotional, my mother. We have gone through a patch where I couldn't have even pursued my graduation if my mother would not have gone door to door selling clothes when my father was jobless for a prolonged period. And I have seen what struggle is. And she has always stood like a rock. To her, my education was primary, and she never allowed anything to come between education and me. She has done everything. Even today, I think there is some divine power in her. She stays with me. There is some divine power in my mother, which always does that trick of getting me where I think I always get prematurely. So I think I believe, I don't think, I believe my very strong influence has been my mother. Needless to say, over the last decade plus, my very strong influence has also come, a strong encouragement has come from my wife, who has been a very strong support. If she has not taken care of my kids completely, I mean, as they are growing up, I wouldn't have got so much of time to pursue my own dreams of reading, writing, and doing my research. So she's also a very strong backbone. And there have been a few other people who has always valued me. I can name a few. In my first university where I worked, the founder of the university of the ICFI Hyderabad, the late founder, Mr. N.J. Yashashvi, who is one of the stalwarts of education in India. He has personally mentored me, and he was the one who gave me the charge of delegating me and starting a campus in Dubai. So that was my offshore. Then my erstwhile boss, who has been a serious mentor to me, Mr. Nitish Jain, very serious. And he has criticized me, he has been my critic, and he has been my well-wisher. I would say these two things. If he hadn't been the critic, I wouldn't have moved the way I moved, and if he hadn't been the well-wisher, I wouldn't have got the blessings. And the third, I would say, in the last 10 years has been his wife, Mr. Jain's wife, Mrs. Jain, being a controller of finance and the head of admissions. She was the one who personally looked into the fact that I not only grow, but I do my job diligently, honestly, and take wise decisions. So I think in my professional life, these three people deserve a lot of space, very lot. I admire different people for different things. I have grown into an atmosphere where, to me, value system should be inculcated like Swami Vivekananda. I have grown in an atmosphere of Swami Vivekananda, the Ramakrishnas. So when it comes to accomplishment, I have always looked upon one of the legendary sports persons of India, which I have seen from my very early age, the captain of the Indian cricket team who won the 1983 World Cup, first World Cup, Mr. Kapil Dev. I have admired him because when I read his biography, I realized you don't have to be born a star. You don't have to. You can polish yourself, you can do hard work, and you can achieve. That was all about him, and that was all about me. I was not born with a golden spoon. I was not born talented. I was not born with some extra hands or limbs. But I knew my potential and I lived up to my potential. And I always believed in myself. That's what he did. He always believed in himself. So when it comes to reaching the stars, I think Kapil Dev is one person whom I always believed, because unlike the TV stars, he was a man of metal. He was a man of personality. So he was a great person whom I always believed. And I put his picture, life-size picture in my room, and I always used to look at him. And the sight of him made me feel that there is an extraordinary person in an ordinary person. There is always an extraordinary personality in an ordinary person. So that is something which I grew up. And my father, you have no idea what passion is all about. So I learned what passion can be from his passion in sports. No matter what happens, till his last day, he pursued his passion of a particular game which he played till his last day, called bridge, which has been first time introduced in the recently concluded Asian Games, and India got a gold medal. And the two people who got the gold medal are actually my father's best friends. So he pursued his passion. And passion, what was passion? What is, people define passion? What is passion? Why I liked him? Because he told me, passion is something which, an activity or something, if you don't do that and you go to bed, you cannot get your sleep. It is not a necessity. It is something which you love so much that without that, you cannot have a peaceful sleep. You have to do it every day. So that is being passionate. So I learned a lot of things. I really admired from him what passion is all about. And I learned the lesson of simplicity from the great saints of India. I think there are two things which are becoming scarce in this world. A combination of knowledge and humility. And if you have these two, knowledge and humility in combination, you're unstoppable. But you will not find much. You will find knowledgeable and arrogant people, humble, non-knowledgeable people. But humility and knowledge, lethal combination. And that comes from the great saints. So I read a lot about saints. I read a lot about their lives. It's all about simplicity. The world will tell you one day how great you are. You don't have to tell the world what you are. I learned a great deal from the saints. So, as I said, there are three people. One, when it comes to admiration, how to become extraordinary from Kapil Dev, how to be passionate from my father, and how to live a simple life from the saints. Myself. There was no one in my family who has been a professor before. I just chose because I felt I'm best at it. Criticism is very important, but it's important to know who is criticizing you. A person who doesn't know how to even play hasn't even played a ball in cricket, criticizes Tendulkar. Why bother? It is important to know who criticizes you. So today, if somebody criticizes me, who matters to me is important to begin with. who doesn't matter to me. It is just another newspaper which will become a garbage tomorrow morning. So, what is important is handling criticism. When somebody is criticizing, don't go by the content of the criticism, go by the intent of the criticism. People criticize because of their personal folly, personal trait, personal reason, personal opinion. But what is the intent? Why are they doing it? If there is a politics in that criticism, it is better to ignore. If there is an element of well-wisher, that criticism should be taken very seriously, because that will help you to become a better person tomorrow. So if a teacher is criticizing you, if you're a student, a teacher, it is important to listen. If your friend's father is criticizing you, it's better to ignore. It matters who is criticizing. My first book, again, I'll come from my great whom I admired. One More Over by Kapil Dev. One More Over. I used to read a lot of biographies, and I keep on reading a lot of biographies. That's a great influence to me, to be very honest. And I used to read a lot of philosophy. I still read a lot of philosophy. Lot. Starting from Aristotle, Plato. I read a lot of philosophy. Philosophical books has always attracted me because of the wide span of thoughts which a single stream can give you. So one element, so many diverse thoughts, only philosophy can give you. But when it comes to specifically about books, one book which I started reading when my father gave me when I was in grade 5, and I still read that book, and I think I still don't understand. It's a religious book. It's called the Bhagavad Gita. I know it by heart. And I live my life as the Bhagavad Gita. It has so many morals. It tells you how God teaches you to be cunning, how God teaches you to be deceitful, how God teaches you to be courageous, how God teaches you to even kill people who are very near to you because their intent is wrong. It tells you everything about life. So there is no other book in my life which has taught me more than the Gita. And I'm very thankful that I started reading when I was so young, because we go through a religious ceremony where we become the Brahmins at a very early age, where we shave our heads and we wear the sacred thread. And that was the time when my father, and we start doing the puja. And that was the time when my grandfather and father said, start reading this book. And I started reading with that understanding. Later on, I started understanding it. But that is one book which has completely changed my thought, and which makes me live a very peaceful and saintly life, to be very honest, which is not trying to be destructive on people. And the other series of books which I loved was in English classics, I would say, William Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare is a rendition of what the Gita is in Sanskrit. The span of thoughts of William Shakespeare's plays actually teaches you there is an other side of life which all of us have, but we don't know. Always. Only opportunity tells us. To cite an example, you are such a nice man sitting peacefully talking to me, and then there is a situation when you are provoked and you start abusing the other person. But that was not yourself, but there was that self inside you. So the question is, how will you know that there is such a self, and how will you control that self? I think Shakespeare's plays teaches you at various stages of life that you are exactly not what you are. You are only what you want the other person to perceive you. So my wife will be a wife to me, and she will be like a master to my mother. But she's the same person. So we are actors, right? So that's what Shakespeare has taught me. And Gita I don't consider it religious, to be very honest, though they consider it religious, because Gita is not a religious text. It is a rendition of the war. It is just a narration of the war to the king who cannot see. So somebody is narrating what the war is all about, what the people in the war, involved in the war, are talking to each other. It's not a religious script, but people have given that idea of religious script. But the power of the Gita is very, very profound. So these are the books, and there are some 300 plus books which I've read in my life, which is on finance. So I can, over a period of time, I started less of reading, more of writing books. So I started writing books, which I'll show you at the end of this. So I think books does influence you, but one has to remember, a book is nothing but an opinion of one person. If it becomes very influential, then that person is taking control over yourself. It's very important. And human mortals taking control over another human mortal is not good. Almighty can take control of you. I taking control of you is not good. So I don't let that happen. I don't know, when you say lessons, after my 15 plus years of my professional career, I understood the most important thing to live a better life tomorrow in a professional world is to know the people around you. And it includes people in your family also. It's very important to know the people around you. So before they know you, you better know them. Because you exactly don't know what is happening behind the screens. You just don't know what is happening behind the screens. So it is better that the art of knowing people is developed as a very serious skill. And the way to do it, there is a secret. Let the other person feel very important. Very simple. Let the other person become so important to you, at least he believes he is so important, that he starts becoming open to you. Closed barriers is always a threat. Openness is always welcome. So my lesson is, professional life is all about people. All your understanding of management subjects, very secondary. I am living my life not for myself. I'll be very honest. It sounds very philosophical. I think my 15 years of my life, of my professional life, 15 years I would say, 15 plus years of my professional life, having traveled more than 40 countries and with a decent retirement planning in place at the age of 42. I think it will be too greedy to think of having 5 more houses. It is of very material consequence. I am living every moment in this life to see my 2 sons grow with values, with a lot of honesty, lot of modesty, lot of humility, and a repository of wisdom which becomes so profound that I get identified by my sons' names, not the other way. I should be remembered as the father of the 2 sons rather than the sons remembered by the son of this father. That is how I want my life to shape, and I'm trying every bit so that these values, humility, modesty are inculcated into the growing life of my 2 kids. I want to do something, one thing in life which people remember me for. At least one thing. I have not found that answer yet. But I can share with you something which I am going to do, which is in very mature stage. This may come in the interview or not, I don't know. My father passed away 3 years back, basically 2 years back, and he was an avid bridge player. Bridge is a game of cards. And his life was all dedicated. So if everything goes well, next year onward, we are starting a tournament, bridge tournament, which is National Bridge Tournament in India, in the memory of my father. It will be a memorial tournament which will have 200 teams participating, and it will draw crowds all over India. And I want, over a period of 5 to 6 years, this to be at least a Pan-Asia tournament, and then in the next 15 years, it should be a global tournament. Initially, it would be all funded by me. and it's a huge funding required. And then slowly we will try to bring sponsors. I believe more about remembering a person by the work they have lived for rather than garlanding the picture. So I don't know what I will do for myself, but to begin with, I will do something for my father, which I think wherever he is today, he is looking and blessing my kids. So this will be one thing. It won't be my legacy, but at least people will say that there is something this kid has done for his father. At least five, maybe five more kids will think about it in future and do something for their parents. So I live my life a little differently. The most important thing for a startup is there is no timing for a startup. So people basically think this is the right time. There are three things which a startup, to me, it's very important. By the way, we also manage our own business back home. So, we're a third generation entrepreneur. So, what starting a business, our is of course very big, in a very different line of business. But let me put it across. Number one, when somebody is starting a business, the thought should not arise whether it will succeed or not, because 9 out of 10 will be a failure. And one has to go with the understanding that it might fail, but still I'll do. Which means there should be a very strong risk-taking capability. Number two, a startup business is all about having a good team. All about having a good team. You cannot have a company run with your own wisdom, with your own potential. No, you may be a great person, but it is all about having the right people in the right team. Every person in a startup should start believing this is my business. If they don't believe this is my business, if they don't have the passion of working literally 24 hours a day, then it will not succeed. In a startup, people cannot work as a salaried person. It doesn't work. As simple as that. And third, most important thing is be prepared for the unprepared. Be prepared for the unprepared. Tomorrow something disaster could happen. That doesn't mean it will bring a grinding halt to your business, or you will never start another business. Maybe it was just premature. Maybe it was your timing was wrong. One has to be prepared for the unprepared. So start with a risk-taking ability. That's primary. That's very important. And end with an idea, which is always be prepared for the unprepared. And everything is possible when you have the right kind of people who also feels individually, this is my business, not our business. It is my business. In a big company, it can be our business because we are all salaried. But in entrepreneurship, it's my business. And everybody says it's my business. That's how it is.